My daughter yelled at me in the restaurant. The entire place went silent. Every fork froze midair, every conversation died, and in that moment I realized something far worse than public humiliation was about to unfold. Because the look in her eyes wasn't just anger, it was something darker, something that told me everything I thought I knew about my family was about to shatter. If you want to know what she handed me next, and trust me, you need to hear this, hit that like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you will make you question everyone you think you can trust. Drop a comment if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you loved. Now let me take you back to where it all began. 3 weeks before that restaurant incident, I thought I had the perfect life. I know how that sounds. Nobody's life is perfect, but mine felt pretty damn close. I had a beautiful home in the suburbs, a husband who still kissed me goodbye every morning after 23 years of marriage, and a daughter who was about to graduate college with honors. Lauren, my baby girl, 22 years old, brilliant, kind, and so much stronger than I ever was at her age. Or so I thought. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the first crack appeared in my perfect world. I was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, chicken parmesan, Lauren's favorite, when my phone buzzed. A text from my husband, David. "Working late again, don't wait up." The third time that week, I stared at those words, feeling something uncomfortable twist in my stomach. David was a corporate lawyer and late nights weren't unusual, but 3 times in 1 week, and always on the nights when Lauren was staying at her apartment near campus. I typed back, "Everything okay?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Just busy, love you." I set the phone down, but that twist in my stomach didn't go away. Instead, it spread like ice water through my veins. "Stop it, Amber," I told myself. "You're being paranoid. David isn't like that. He would never." But the thought was already there, wasn't it? Once you think it, you can't unthink it. I turned back to the chicken, but my hands were shaking. The knife slipped and I watched a thin line of blood bloom across my finger. I didn't even feel the pain. I was too busy wondering when I'd become the kind of wife who doubted her husband. The next morning, I did something I'm not proud of. I checked David's phone. He was in the shower and his phone was charging on the nightstand, face up. I told myself I was just going to glance at it, just to ease my mind, just to prove to myself that I was being ridiculous. His screen lit up with a notification. "Can't wait to see you tonight, same place, M." M. My heart stopped, actually stopped. I could feel it, this awful, empty pause in my chest before it started hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. Who was M? I grabbed the phone, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped it. I tried his passcode, our anniversary, it didn't work. I tried Lauren's birthday, nothing. I tried our address numbers. Locked out. When Eddie changed his passcode. The shower turned off. I practically threw the phone back on the nightstand, my pulse racing, my mind screaming. David came out wrapped in a towel, his hair dripping, smiling at me like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't just changed his passcode to hide something from his wife of 23 years. "Morning, beautiful," he said, kissing my forehead. I forced a smile. "Morning. You okay? You look pale." "Just tired," I lied. He studied my face for a moment and I swear I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt, suspicion, I couldn't tell anymore. "Well, take it easy today," he said, grabbing his phone and heading to the closet. "I've got dinner with a client tonight, so I'll be home late." Another late night. "Who's the client?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Marcus Henderson, the real estate guy." David didn't even look at me as he said it, just pulled on his pants and reached for a shirt. "It's going to be a long one, probably won't be back until after 10. "Marcus Henderson, M." No, Marcus was a 60-year-old man with 3 kids and a wife who organized charity galas. Unless. "Where are you meeting him?" I asked. David paused, his hands on his tie. "The Hamilton, why?" "Just curious." He turned to look at me, then really look at me, and I saw it again, that flicker of something in his eyes. "Amber," he said slowly, "is something wrong?" "No," I said too quickly, "nothing's wrong." But everything was wrong, everything. I spent that entire day in a fog. I couldn't eat, couldn't focus, couldn't stop thinking about that text message. Can't wait to see you tonight, same place. Same place, meaning they'd been there before, meaning this wasn't the first time, meaning my husband who still kissed me goodbye every morning, who still held my hand during movies, who still told me I was beautiful, was meeting someone else. I tried to think of who it could be, a coworker, a client, someone from the gym. My phone rang, snapping me out of my spiral. Lauren. Hey, Mom, her voice was bright, cheerful. Want to grab lunch tomorrow? I'm done with finals and I'm dying for some real food that isn't ramen. Of course, sweetheart, I said, trying to inject warmth into my voice. Where do you want to go? That Italian place downtown, Bellini's. Perfect, noon. Noon works, love you, Mom. Love you too, baby. I hung up and suddenly I was crying. Big, ugly, silent tears streaming down my face because what if I was wrong? What if I was destroying my marriage with paranoid suspicions? What if David was exactly who I thought he was and I was just losing my mind? But what if I was right? That night, I did something even worse than checking his phone. I followed him. I know how that sounds, but I had to know. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't breathe without knowing the truth. David left at 6:30, dressed in his expensive suit, smelling like the cologne I'd bought him for Christmas. He kissed me goodbye, told me he loved me, and walked out the door. I waited 5 minutes, then I grabbed my keys and followed. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. My heart was pounding in my ears, drowning out the radio, drowning out everything except the voice in my head screaming at me to turn around, go home, trust my husband. But I couldn't. David's car was easy to follow, a black Mercedes that stood out even in evening traffic. I stayed 3 cars back, my stomach churning, my mind racing through 1,000 scenarios. Maybe he really was meeting Marcus Henderson. Maybe I was about to ruin my marriage over nothing. Maybe I should turn around right now and... David's car turned. Not toward downtown, not toward the Hamilton restaurant. Toward the east side of town, toward the part of the city where trendy apartments had sprung up, where young professionals lived in modern buildings with rooftop pools and wine bars. My chest tightened. He pulled into a parking garage. I waited outside, my car idling, my whole body trembling. 3 minutes later, David emerged on foot, walking toward a building I didn't recognize. A nice building, an expensive building. He walked through the front doors like he'd been there 100 times. I sat in my car, staring at that building, and I felt my entire world crumbling around me. Who lived there? Who was M? I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except sit there and watch the building like if I stared at it long enough, everything would make sense. 2 hours later, David emerged. He wasn't alone. My heart stopped for the second time in 2 days. Because walking beside my husband, laughing at something he said, her hand brushing against his arm in a way that was far too familiar, far too intimate, was a woman I'd never seen before. She was young, maybe 30, beautiful in that effortless way that made my 45-year-old heart sink into my stomach. Dark hair, perfect skin, wearing jeans and a sweater like she'd just been having a casual evening at home. With my husband. David leaned in and kissed her, not a quick peck, not a friendly goodbye, a real kiss, the kind of kiss that told me everything I needed to know. I watched my husband kiss another woman and something inside me died. Then something worse happened. Because as I sat there, frozen, tears streaming down my face, unable to look away, I saw another figure exit the building behind them. Lauren. My daughter, my baby girl, walking out of the same building just minutes after David and this woman. What the hell was Lauren doing there? I watched confused as Lauren walked to her car parked just 3 spaces from David's Mercedes. She got in, pulled out her phone, and even from this distance I could see her face illuminated by the screen. She was texting someone. Then she looked up directly at David and the woman who were still standing there, still talking, still too close. Lauren didn't look surprised, didn't look shocked, didn't look angry. She just watched them for a moment, then started her car and drove away. And that's when I realized something far worse than an affair was happening. My daughter knew. I didn't sleep that night, I couldn't. I lay in bed next to David, who came home at 11, kissed my forehead and fell asleep like nothing was wrong and stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. Lauren knew, my daughter knew her father was having an affair and she hadn't told me. Why? How long had she known? Weeks, months? How long had my own daughter been keeping this secret from me? The betrayal felt like a physical thing, crushing my chest, making it impossible to breathe. I wanted to wake David up, wanted to scream at him, wanted to demand answers, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything except lie there and feel my family fall apart around me. Morning came, David Kai said me goodbye, told me he loved me and left for work. I got up, showered, dressed, and prepared to meet my daughter for lunch. The daughter who'd been lying to me. I arrived at Bellini's 15 minutes early. I sat in the corner booth, ordered water, and tried to prepare myself for what I was about to do. Lauren walked in at exactly noon, looking beautiful in jeans and a soft blue sweater, her long hair pulled back in a ponytail. She smiled when she saw me, waved, and made her way over. My daughter, my baby girl, who'd been keeping the most devastating secret from me. Hey, Mom, she slid into the booth across from me, still smiling. You look nice, new lipstick. Lauren, I said, my voice coming out harder than I intended. We need to talk. Her smile faltered. Okay, what's wrong? I saw you last night. The color drained from her face. What? I saw you at that apartment building on the east side. I saw you leave right after your father and, I couldn't say it, couldn't say the words, and her. Lauren's eyes went wide, then something changed in her expression. The shock melted away, replaced by something I'd never seen on my daughter's face before. Cold calculation. Mom, she said quietly, you need to calm down. Calm down, my voice rose and I didn't care who heard. My husband is having an affair and my daughter has been keeping it from me and you want me to calm down. Mom, please lower your voice. How long have you known? I demanded. How long have you been lying to me? People were starting to stare. I could feel their eyes on us, but I didn't care. I needed answers. Lauren's jaw tightened. You don't understand. Then make me understand. How could you do this to me? How could you watch your father betray our family and not tell me? Because it's not what you think. Lauren's voice cracked and tears filled her eyes. You don't know the whole story. Then tell me. The entire restaurant was silent now. Every single person was watching us. The waiters had stopped moving. Even the kitchen seemed to have gone quiet. Lauren's hands were shaking. She reached into her purse, pulled out a manila envelope and slammed it on the table between us. You want the truth, Mom? Her voice was cold now, distant. Here's the truth. My hands trembled as I reached for the envelope. It wasn't sealed. I pulled out the contents. Photographs, at least a dozen of them. The first one showed David and the young woman entering a restaurant. The second showed them at a park. The third showed them at her apartment building. But it was the fourth photograph that made my blood run cold. Because it wasn't just David and the young woman in the picture. There was someone else, someone I recognized immediately, even though I hadn't seen them in almost 15 years. My sister Rachel. The sister I'd cut out of my life, the sister I'd sworn never to speak to again, the sister who'd betrayed me in the worst way possible all those years ago. My sister was in the photograph with David and this young woman, and they were all smiling like they were family. Mom, Lauren said, her voice breaking, that woman with Dad, her name is Madison. She's 23 years old and she's not Dad's mistress. I looked up at my daughter, my hands shaking so badly the photographs scattered across the table. She's your daughter. The world stopped. Everything, the restaurant, the people, the air itself, just stopped. What? I whispered. Madison is Dad's daughter, Lauren continued, tears streaming down her face now. From when he and Aunt Rachel had an affair 24 years ago, before they told you, before you cut Rachel out of your life. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I was hearing. Dad and Aunt Rachel have been in contact for years, helping Madison, supporting her, and I've known for 6 months. 6 months? My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. You've known for 6 months that your father has another daughter and you didn't tell me. Because I was trying to protect you, Lauren was crying openly now, but her voice was strong. Because I knew this would destroy you and I was trying to find the right way to tell you and I was trying to understand it myself and… Trying to protect me? I stood up, knocking my chair backward. You lied to me for 6 months. You watched me smile at your father every day, thinking I had a happy marriage, thinking I had a family I could trust, and you knew he'd been lying to me for over 2 decades. Mom, please. But I wasn't done. 23 years of marriage, 23 years of thinking I knew my husband, 23 years of believing I'd moved past my sister's betrayal, never knowing that betrayal had created a whole other person, a daughter David had kept hidden from me for 24 years. Did he ever tell you? I asked Lauren, my voice dangerously quiet. Did he ever plan to tell me? Lauren's face crumpled. He wanted to, he's been wanting to for years, but he was afraid. Afraid? I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. He was afraid. What about me? What about our marriage? What about the fact that I've been living a lie for our entire relationship? The restaurant was completely silent, 50 people watching our family implode. I grabbed the photographs, my hands shaking, and looked at them again, really looked at them. Madison, 23 years old, with David's eyes, David's smile, standing next to my sister Rachel like they were mother and daughter. And they were. Rachel had slept with my boyfriend David 24 years ago, had gotten pregnant, had kept the baby. And somehow David had ended up marrying me anyway 9 months later, never telling me that my sister had given birth to his daughter. My sister, the one person I'd trusted more than anyone in the world, who I'd shared everything with, who I'd loved unconditionally. Until she betrayed me with the man I loved. And I'd cut her out, blocked her number, refused to see her at family events, told my parents that if they wanted me in their lives, Rachel couldn't be there. I'd thought I'd won. I'd thought that by marrying David, by building a beautiful life with him, I'd proven that Rachel's betrayal hadn't broken me. But it had all been a lie. David had never chosen me, he'd just been too cowardly to tell me the truth. And now, 24 years later, his secret daughter was here, real, alive, a living reminder of everything I'd tried to forget. How did you find out? I asked Lauren, my voice hollow. Madison contacted me, Lauren said quietly. 6 months ago on social media, she told me everything. She wanted to meet me, she wanted to know her sister. And you said yes. Of course I said yes, Lauren wiped her tears. She's my sister, Mom. She didn't ask to be born into this mess. She didn't ask for any of this. Neither did I. Lauren flinched like I'd slapped her. I gathered the photographs, shoved them back into the envelope, and grabbed my purse. Where are you going? Lauren asked, standing up. Home, I said. I'm going home to pack my husband's things and throw them on the lawn. Then I'm calling a divorce attorney. Then I'm going to figure out how to tell my parents that the daughter they haven't seen in 15 years was right all along. Mom, wait. No? I looked at my daughter, and for the first time in her life I saw her as someone separate from me. Someone who'd made choices I didn't understand. Someone who'd chosen to lie to me even if she thought it was for my own good. You made your choice, Lauren. You chose him. You chose your father and his secret daughter over me. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed again, that same bitter sound. Nothing about this is fair, but you're right about one thing I don't understand. I don't understand how you could look me in the eye every day for 6 months and lie to me. I don't understand how your father could build a life with me while hiding an entire child. I don't understand how my own sister could do what she did. And right now, I don't want to understand. I turned to walk away, and Lauren grabbed my arm. Mom, there's more. I froze. More. Madison didn't just want to meet me, Lauren said, her voice barely above a whisper. She wants to meet you too, and there's something else. Something Dad hasn't told you, something that changes everything. I pulled my arm from her grasp. I don't care, I don't want to hear it. Mom, please. But I was already walking toward the exit, past all the staring faces, past the concerned waiters, past everything that had been my normal life just 24 hours ago. I made it to my car before I started sobbing, big, gasping, broken sobs that shook my entire body. I gripped the steering wheel and cried for the marriage I thought I had, for the sister I thought I knew, for the daughter who'd learned to lie to me, for the life that had just been revealed as a carefully constructed facade. My phone buzzed, a text from Lauren. Mom, I'm so sorry, but you need to know the whole truth. Madison is sick, really sick, and she needs a kidney transplant. That's why Dad reconnected with Aunt Rachel. That's why I've been helping them. Madison needs you. She's your family too, even if you don't want to accept it. And there's a reason Dad never told you about her. A reason that might change how you feel about everything. Please just let me explain, please. I stared at the text, my hands shaking, my heart pounding. Madison was sick, needed a kidney transplant. And there was something else, something David hadn't told me, something that might change everything. But did I want to know? Did I want to hear whatever excuse, whatever justification, whatever reason David had for destroying our marriage before it even began? My phone buzzed again. This time it was David. Lauren told me what happened. I'm so sorry, Amber. I know you're angry, I know. You hate me right now, but please come home, let me explain, let me tell you the whole story. It's not what you think. Nothing about this is what you think. Please just give me one chance to explain. I love you. I've always loved you. Please come home. I sat in my car in the Bellini's parking lot, staring at these two text messages, and I realized I had a choice. I could go home and hear the explanation. I could learn whatever secret David had kept for 24 years. I could meet Madison, my husband's daughter, with my sister, and maybe understand why my entire family had lied to me. Or I could drive away, file for divorce, cut them all out of my life the way I'd cut Rachel out 15 years ago, start over, build a new life, forget any of this had ever happened. My finger hovered over David's message. One chance to explain. Did he deserve it? Did any of them deserve it? But then I thought about Madison, 23 years old, sick, needing a kidney transplant. A daughter David had hidden from me, yes, but also a young woman who was innocent in all of this. A half-sister to Lauren, a niece to me in a twisted, horrible way. And there was something else, something that might change everything. I took a deep breath and started my car. I drove home in complete silence. No radio, no music, just the sound of my own breathing and the hum of the engine. Every traffic light felt like an eternity. Every turn brought me closer to answers I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. David's car was already in the driveway when I pulled up. He'd left work early. Of course he had. Lauren had told him everything. I sat in my car for a full 5 minutes staring at our house. The house we'd bought 18 years ago, the house where we'd raised Lauren, the house where we'd celebrated birthdays and anniversaries and holidays, the house that now felt like a monument to lies. My phone buzzed again. David. I see you, please come inside. He was watching from the window, waiting for me. I grabbed the envelope of photographs, took a deep breath, and got out of the car. David opened the door before I could reach for my keys. He looked terrible. His tie was loose, his hair messy like he'd been running his hands through it, his eyes red. Good, I thought viciously, he should look terrible. Amber, he said, his voice hoarse, thank you for coming home. I pushed past him without a word and walked into the living room, the room where we'd watched Lauren take her first steps, the room where we'd hosted Christmas dinners and game nights, the room that now felt like enemy territory. I threw the envelope of photographs on the coffee table. Talk. David closed the door and followed me, but he didn't sit down. He stood there, wringing his hands, looking more afraid than I'd ever seen him. I don't know where to start, he said. How about the beginning? My voice was ice. How about 24 years ago when you slept with my sister? David flinched. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, David? Enlighten me. Tell me how sleeping with my sister and getting her pregnant while you were dating me was somehow not exactly what it sounds like. We weren't together, he said quietly. I stared at him. What? You and me, we weren't together when it happened. David's hands were shaking now. We'd broken up, remember? You'd gone to Boston for that summer internship. You said you needed space to figure out what you wanted. You said we should take a break. The summer internship, God, I'd forgotten about that. 24 years ago felt like a lifetime. We were broken up for 3 months, David continued. And I was a mess. I was 23 years old, heartbroken, convinced you were never coming back. Rachel came to check on me. She was worried about me. We started talking, and one night, he trailed off, his voice breaking. One night it just happened. We were both drunk. We were both lonely. It was a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. Rachel got pregnant, I said flatly. Rachel got pregnant, David confirmed. She didn't tell me for 2 months. By that time, you'd come back from Boston. You'd told me you loved me. You'd told me you wanted to make it work. We'd gotten back together. And Rachel was pregnant with your baby.
Yes.
The word hung in the air between us like a bomb. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Why didn't either of you tell me? David's face crumpled. Rachel wanted to. She was going to tell you everything, but then she lost the baby. I froze. What? She miscarried, David said, tears streaming down his face now. At 4 months. She called me from the hospital, devastated. I went to see her and she made me promise not to tell you. She said there was no point in destroying your relationship with her over a baby that didn't exist anymore. She said it would only hurt you for no reason. My mind was reeling, but Madison. I'm getting to that. David sat down heavily on the couch, his head in high hands. A year later, you and I got engaged. We were planning the wedding. Everything was perfect. And then Rachel called me. She told me she'd lied. She hadn't miscarried. She'd given birth to Madison and given her up for adoption. She'd lied to me because she couldn't bear to raise my child while watching me marry her sister. The room spun. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. You knew, I whispered. When we got married, you knew Rachel had given birth to your daughter. Yes, David looked up at me, his face a mask of pain. And I made the worst decision of my life. I decided not to tell you. Rachel had given Madison to a good family, a wealthy family who desperately wanted a child. Rachel said Madison would have a better life with them than she ever could have given her, and I convinced myself that telling you would only destroy our relationship for no reason. Madison was gone. She was being raised by other people. She had a new life. So you married me and lied to me for 23 years. I married you because I loved you, David said desperately. Because you were the only person I'd ever loved. Because that night with Rachel was a mistake I regretted every single day, because I couldn't imagine my life without you. But you built our marriage on a lie. Yes, his voice broke completely. Yes, I did, and I've regretted it every single day since. But Amber, you have to understand, I thought it was over. I thought Madison would grow up happy with her adoptive family and we'd never have to deal with this. I thought I could just move forward and be the best husband I could be and make up for my mistake by giving you the best life possible. You don't get to make that choice for me, I was shouting now, all the rage and pain pouring out. You don't get to decide what I can handle. You don't get to lie to me for 2 decades because you think you're protecting me. I know, David was crying openly now. I know, and I'm sorry. God, Amber, I'm so sorry. When did Madison come back into your life? David wiped his face. 3 years ago, she tracked down Rachel through one of those DNA websites. Rachel called me, panicking. Madison wanted to meet her birth mother. She wanted to know where she came from. Rachel didn't know what to do. So you reconnected with my sister, behind my back. I had to, David said. Madison was asking questions. She wanted to know about her birth father. Rachel couldn't keep lying to her. We decided to meet with her together to explain everything, to answer her questions. And you still didn't tell me. I wanted to, David stood up, his hands outstretched. Amber, I wanted to tell you so many times, but I was terrified. I was terrified you'd leave me. I was terrified you'd hate me. I was terrified of losing you. So instead you let me live a lie. David's shoulders sagged. Yes. I laughed bitterly. And Lauren, when did our daughter get involved in this mess? Madison found her 6 months ago, David said quietly. Through social media, she reached out to Lauren, told her everything. Lauren came to me furious, demanding to know if it was true. I couldn't lie to her, so I told her the whole story. And instead of telling me, Lauren decided to keep your secret too. I begged her not to tell you, David admitted. I told her I would tell you myself. I told her I just needed time to figure out how, and then, he trailed off. Then what? Then Madison got sick. The words hit me like a physical blow. I remembered Lauren's text. Madison is sick, really sick, and she needs a kidney transplant. What's wrong with her? I asked, hating myself for caring. Polycystic kidney disease, David said. It's genetic. Her adoptive mother had it too, and she passed away from it 5 years ago. Madison's kidneys are failing. She needs a transplant soon, or he couldn't finish the sentence. Or she'll die. Yes. I sat down finally, my legs unable to hold me anymore. Madison, my husband's daughter, my sister's daughter, a 23-year-old woman I'd never met, dying. Why are you telling me this? I asked. What do you want from me? David knelt in front of me, taking my hands. I wanted to pull away, but I couldn't move. Madison needs a kidney, he said. Rachel tried to donate, but she's not a match. I tried, but I'm not a match either. Lauren got tested, and she's not a match. We've been on the transplant list for months, but time is running out. Dread filled my stomach. David, what are you asking me? I'm not asking you anything, he said quickly. I would never ask you to do that, but Amber, there's something else you need to know, something I just found out last week. What? David took a deep breath. Madison isn't just my daughter, she's also related to you. I stared at him. That doesn't make sense. She's Rachel's daughter. Rachel and I are sisters, but... Your father, David interrupted. Your father isn't Rachel's biological father. The world tilted. What are you talking about? Rachel found out 3 years ago, David said, his words coming faster now. When she did the DNA test with Madison, she found out that your father, the man who raised both of you, isn't her biological father. Your mother had an affair before Rachel was born. Rachel has a different father. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I was hearing. So Rachel and I aren't full sisters? No, David confirmed. You're half-sisters, which means Madison isn't just my daughter, she's your niece, but not in the way you thought. The genetic connection is different. Why are you telling me this? David's grip on my hands tightened. Because when the doctors were running the compatibility tests, they found something. They found that you might be a match. Everything went silent. What? The genetic markers, David said desperately. Because of your specific relationship to Madison, because Rachel is your half-sister and Madison is Rachel's daughter, there's a chance you could be a compatible kidney donor. The doctors want to test you. I pulled my hands away and stood up, stumbling backward. You want me to give a kidney to the daughter you had with my sister? No, David stood too, his hands out. I don't want anything, I'm just telling you what the doctor said. I'm not asking you to do anything, you've already been through enough. I thought you deserved to know the truth, all of it. Get out. Amber. Get out of this house? I was screaming now, all control gone. Get out, pack a bag and get out. I can't look at you, I can't be near you, I can't. My phone rang, cutting through my rage. Lauren. I answered without thinking. What? Mom, Lauren's voice was tight with panic. You need to come to Memorial Hospital right now. My anger evaporated, replaced by ice-cold fear. What happened? It's Madison, she collapsed. They're saying her kidneys are failing faster than they thought. Mom, please, she's asking for you. She doesn't even know me. She knows enough, Lauren's voice broke. Please, Mom, I know you're angry, I know you hate all of us right now, but please, she's 23 years old and she's dying and she just wants to meet you once before. Lauren couldn't finish, but she didn't have to. I looked at David, who was staring at me with desperate hope in his eyes. I looked at my house, my beautiful house that had been a lie. I looked at my life, my perfect life that had never been real. And I made a decision that would either save me or destroy me completely. I'm on my way, I told Lauren and hung up. The drive to Memorial Hospital took 20 minutes. David followed in his car. I didn't tell him he could. I didn't tell him he couldn't. I just drove, my mind blank, my emotions shut down completely. If I let myself feel anything, I would shatter. Lauren met us in the ICU waiting room. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her face pale. She's stable for now, Lauren said. But the doctors say we're running out of time. They've bumped her up on the transplant list, but unless a donor becomes available in the next few weeks. Where is she? I asked. Room 412, but Mom, before you go in there, you should know. Know what? Lauren glanced at David, then back at me. Rachel is in there with her. Of course she was, my sister, the woman I hadn't seen in 15 years, the woman who'd betrayed me and then lied about it for 2 decades. Maybe I should come with you, David said quietly. No, I said firmly, this is between me and Rachel and Madison, you've done enough. I left them in the waiting room and walked toward room 412 on legs that didn't feel like my own. The door was partially open, I could hear voices inside, a woman's voice soft and reassuring, Rachel's voice. I hadn't heard my sister's voice in 15 years. I pushed the door open. Rachel was sitting in a chair beside the hospital bed, holding the hand of a young woman with dark hair and pale skin. The young woman had tubes running from her arms and monitors beeping softly beside her. Madison. She had David's eyes, David's nose, but her smile, even weakened by illness, was pure Rachel. Rachel looked up when I entered, and the blood drained from her face. Amber, she breathed. We stared at each other across the hospital room, 15 years of silence and pain between us. Rachel looked older, tired, her hair had threads of gray I didn't remember, lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before, but she was still my sister. Still the person I'd grown up with, shared secrets with, trusted more than anyone in the world. Before she destroyed that trust. Hi Rachel, I said quietly. Madison's eyes, David's eyes, focused on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. You're Amber, she said, her voice was weak, barely above a whisper. You're my aunt. I suppose I am, I said. Rachel stood up slowly like she was afraid any sudden movement might scare me away. Amber. I don't even know what to say. Then don't say anything, I interrupted. I'm not here for you, I'm here because Lauren asked me to come, because a young woman is dying and apparently she wanted to meet me before. I couldn't finish the sentence. Thank you, Madison said, for coming. I know this is awkward, I know you probably hate all of us, but I wanted to see you, I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry for existing, for being the proof of what happened between your husband and your sister, for ruining your life. You didn't ruin my life, I said, surprising myself. They did. I looked at Rachel as I said it, and she flinched like I'd struck her. I know, Rachel said quietly, I know we did, and I've lived with that guilt every single day for 24 years, but Amber, you need to know. That it was when David and I were broken up, I interrupted. That you gave Madison up for adoption, that you lied about miscarrying. David already told me everything. Rachel's eyes widened. Everything. Everything, I confirmed, including the fact that we're only half-sisters, that Mom had an affair, that your entire existence in our family was built on a lie, just like my marriage. Rachel sank back into her chair. She told you. Who told me what? Mom, she told you about my biological father. No, I said, David told me. When did you find out? 3 years ago, Rachel said. When I did the DNA test with Madison, I found out that Dad, the man who raised me, wasn't my biological father. Mom finally admitted that she'd had an affair 37 years ago, she'd gotten pregnant and she'd let Dad believe I was his. She'd built their entire marriage on a lie. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 generations of women in our family, all living lies. Does Dad know? I asked. Rachel shook her head. Mom begged me not to tell him, she said it would destroy him. She said she'd lived with the guilt for 37 years and she didn't want to hurt him after all this time, so I kept her secret just like she'd been keeping mine. And you thought that was okay? I was getting angry again. You thought keeping more secrets was the solution. I thought I was protecting people I loved, Rachel shot back, standing up again. Just like you thought cutting me out of your life 15 years ago was protecting yourself. We've all made terrible choices, Amber. We've all lied and hidden and hurt each other. But maybe it's time to stop. Stop, I laughed bitterly. How do we stop? How do we fix 24 years of lies? We tell the truth, Madison said softly. We both looked at her. She was sitting up slightly in bed now, her face determined despite her obvious weakness. We tell the truth, she repeated. All of it, no more secrets, no more lies, starting now. What truth? I asked. Madison took a shaky breath. The truth about why I really wanted to meet you. It wasn't just because you're my aunt. It wasn't just because I'm dying and wanted to know my biological family. She looked at Rachel, who nodded encouragingly. It's because I'm not actually dying. The room went silent. What? I stared at her. Lauren said the doctors said. I do have polycystic kidney disease, Madison said quickly. That part is true, and my kidneys are failing. I do need a transplant, but it's not urgent, not the way everyone has been saying. I have months, maybe even a year or two, before it becomes critical. I looked at Rachel, fury building in my chest. You lied, you made this seem more urgent than it is to manipulate me into. No, Madison interrupted. Rachel didn't know, David didn't know, Lauren didn't know. I'm the one who lied. I'm the one who told them my condition was worse than it is. Why? The word came out as a whisper. Madison's eyes filled with tears. Because I wanted to meet you, I wanted to know my family. My adoptive mother died when I was 18 and I have no siblings, no cousins, no one. When I found Rachel and David, I thought I'd finally found where I belonged. But there was this huge part of the family missing. You, and everyone kept telling me I couldn't meet you because you'd been hurt too badly, because it would destroy you to know about me. She trailed off looking ashamed. So you made yourself seem like you were dying so I'd have to face you. I'm so sorry. Madison was crying now. I know it was wrong, I know it was manipulative, but I was desperate. I've spent my whole life wondering where I came from, who my real family was, and when I finally found you, you were the one person I couldn't have. So I lied, I made it seem urgent. I thought if everyone believed I was running out of time, you'd come, and you did. I stared at this young woman, my niece, my husband's daughter, the product of the worst betrayal of my life, and I didn't know what to feel. Anger, yes. Betrayal, absolutely. But also understanding. Because I knew what it felt like to be desperate for family, to want answers, to need to belong somewhere. You're still sick though, I said finally. You still need a kidney. Yes, Madison confirmed. Just not as urgently as everyone thought. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I manipulated everyone, but I'm not sorry I got to meet you. Rachel was staring at Madison in shock. You lied to me. You told me you had months. I know, Madison said quietly. I'm sorry, Mom. The word hung in the air. Mom. Madison had called Rachel Mom. Rachel started crying, and suddenly 15 years of hurt and anger and loneliness came pouring out of her. I gave you up because I thought it was best for you, Rachel sobbed. I thought you'd have a better life with a family who could give you everything I couldn't. I thought I was being selfless. And then when you found me and I got to know you and you started calling me Mom, she couldn't continue. Madison reached out and took Rachel's hand. You are my mom's. My adoptive mother was wonderful and I loved her, but you're my mom too, and I don't regret finding you, I just regret lying to everyone. I watched them, mother and daughter, crying and holding each other, and something inside me cracked. Because I'd spent 15 years hating Rachel, 15 years convinced she'd betrayed me in the worst way possible, 15 years refusing to see her side of the story. But looking at her now, broken and grieving and clinging to the daughter she'd given up, I saw something I'd refused to see before. Rachel hadn't set out to hurt me. She'd been 23 years old, lonely and making terrible decisions, just like I'd made terrible decisions, just like we'd all made terrible decisions. Rachel, I said quietly. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I need you to answer one question honestly, I continued. Just one, and then I'll decide what happens next. Anything, Rachel whispered. Did you love him? Rachel understood immediately what I was asking. Did you love David? Was it more than just a drunken mistake? Was it something real that you hid from me all these years? Rachel took a shaky breath. No, I never loved David, not the way you did, not the way you do. That night was a mistake born out of loneliness and too much wine and missing you. I wanted my sister back. I wanted my best friend. And in that moment, being with David made me feel close to you again. I know how messed up that sounds, but Amber, I swear to you, I never loved him. And I've regretted that night every single day since. I stared at my sister, trying to determine if she was telling the truth. And I realized, with a certainty that surprised me, that she was. Okay, I said. Okay, Rachel repeated. What does that mean? It means I believe you, I said. It means I'm going to need time to process all of this. It means I'm not ready to forgive anyone yet, but it means I'm willing to try. Rachel's face crumpled and she started crying harder. Thank you, Amber, thank you. Don't thank me yet, I interrupted. I'm still furious at you. I'm still furious at David. I'm still furious at Lauren for lying to me, and I'm definitely furious at Madison for manipulating everyone. But I looked at Madison, at this young woman who just wanted to belong. But I understand why you did it. All of you, I don't agree with it. I don't condone it, but I understand. Does this mean you'll get tested? Madison asked hopefully, to see if you're a match. I took a deep breath. This was the question, wasn't it? The real question under all of this. Would I donate a kidney to save the daughter my husband had with my sister? I don't know, I said honestly. I need time to think. I need time to figure out what I want, but I promise I'll think about it. It wasn't the answer Madison wanted. I could see the disappointment in her eyes, but it was the only answer I could give right now. That's fair, Madison said quietly. Thank you for even considering it. I nodded and turned to leave, but before I could reach the door, Rachel spoke again. Amber, wait, there's one more thing you should know. I turned back exhausted. What now? Rachel looked at Madison, who nodded encouragingly. David didn't reconnect with me 3 years ago just because Madison found me, Rachel said. He'd been trying to contact me for years before that, since before you cut me out. He wanted us to reconcile. He wanted you to forgive me. He never stopped believing that our family could heal. Why didn't he tell me? Because you made it very clear that you never wanted to see me or hear about me again, Rachel said gently. David respected that, but he also never gave up hope. He kept tabs on me through mutual friends. He sent me money when I was struggling. He made sure I was okay, even though you'd forbidden him from having any contact with me. I stared at Rachel, processing this new information. David had been secretly helping my sister for 15 years, the sister I'd cut out, the sister I'd forbidden him from seeing. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I want you to know that David loves you, Rachel said. He made a terrible mistake 24 years ago, we both did. But everything he's done since then, marrying you, building a life with you, secretly supporting me while respecting your boundaries, he did it because he loves you. Not because he was trying to hide something or because he felt guilty. Because he genuinely, truly loves you. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded and walked out. David and Lauren were still in the waiting room. They both stood up when they saw me. Well, David asked cautiously. Madison lied, I said flatly. She's not dying, not imminently anyway. She has months, maybe years. She exaggerated her condition to force me to meet her. Lauren's jaw dropped. What? She wanted to meet me, I continued. And she thought if everyone believed she was dying, I'd have no choice but to come, and she was right. That little Lauren started, but I held up a hand. Don't, she's young and desperate and lonely. She made a mistake, just like all of us have made mistakes. David was staring at me like he didn't recognize me. What happens now? Now, I looked at my husband, this man I'd loved for 24 years, this man who'd lied to me for our entire relationship. Now I go home, alone, and I think, and when I'm ready, if I'm ready, we'll talk, really talk, about everything. About whether our marriage can survive this, about whether I can trust you again, about whether any of this is salvageable. Can I come home? David asked quietly, or do you want me to stay somewhere else? I wanted to tell him to stay away forever, to never come back, to get out of my life permanently. But I thought about what Rachel had said, about David supporting her secretly for years, about him never giving up hope that our family could heal. You can come home, I said finally, but you're sleeping in the guest room and we're going to counseling. If you want any chance of saving this marriage, we're getting professional help. I'll do whatever it takes, David said immediately. Anything, I'll go to counseling, I'll answer any questions you have, I'll give you all the space you need, just please, please don't give up on us. I looked at Lauren. You and I need to talk too, separately, about trust and honesty and what it means to be a family. Lauren nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Mom. I know you are, I said, but sorry isn't enough, we all have a lot of work to do. I turned to walk away, then stopped. And Lauren, tell Madison I'll get tested. I'm not promising anything beyond that, but I'll get tested to see if I'm a match. She deserves at least that much. Lauren's face lit up. Really? Really? I confirmed. But tell her this, if I am a match and if I decide to donate, it's not because she manipulated me. It's not because I forgive any of you. It's because she's a 23-year-old woman who deserves a chance at life regardless of how she came into this world. Can you tell her that?" "Yes," Lauren said, "I'll tell her." I nodded and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard David say quietly to Lauren, "Is she really going to give us another chance?" And Lauren's response, "I think so, but Dad, there's something else you should know, something Mom doesn't know yet, something that's going to change everything again when she finds out." I stopped walking, turned around slowly. "What did you just say?" Lauren's face went pale. She looked at David, panic in her eyes. "Lauren," I said, my voice deadly calm, "what don't I know yet?" David put his hand on Lauren's shoulder, and in that moment I saw something pass between them, a look, a decision. "Tell her," David said quietly, "she deserves to know." "Tell me what?" I demanded. Lauren took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Madison's not the only other child Dad has." The world stopped spinning. "What?" "There's someone else," Lauren said, tears streaming down her face again. "Another child from before you and Dad got married, and Mom," she looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, fear mixed with something else, something like pity. "This one you already know." My mind raced through possibilities, but nothing made sense. "Who?" I whispered. David stepped forward, his face completely white. "Amber, I need you to sit down." "Tell me who," I said, my voice rising. "Tell me right now." "It's Jake," David said quietly. "Your nephew Jake, Rachel's son that she had when she was 17, the one your parents raised as their own surprise late-in-life baby, the one you think is your little brother." The room spun. I grabbed the wall to keep from falling. Jake, my baby brother, 15 years old, living with my parents. The child my mother had supposedly had at 45 years old, shocking everyone in the family. "No," I whispered, "that. Not possible. Mom was pregnant. We all saw her pregnant." "She wore padding," Rachel's voice said from behind me. I turned to see her standing in the hallway outside Madison's room. "She and Dad decided to raise him as their own to protect me. I was 17, Amber. I was a child. They thought it was best." "And the father?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "David," Rachel confirmed. "Jake is David's son. He's Madison's full brother, and he's your nephew and your stepson and your brother all at once." I stared at all of them, David, Rachel, Lauren, and I realized that I knew nothing. Nothing about my family, nothing about my marriage, nothing about my life. Everything was a lie, every single thing. "How long have you known?" I asked Lauren. "Since yesterday," Lauren admitted. "Madison told me she found out when she did the DNA test. She has a full brother she didn't know about, Jake has a sister he doesn't know about, and you have a nephew who's actually your stepson." "Does Jake know?" "No," David said. "Your parents haven't told him. They're terrified of what it will do to him. He thinks they're his real parents. He thinks you're his sister." I laughed, a hollow, broken sound that echoed through the hospital corridor. "Is there anything else?" I asked. "Any other secret children? Any other massive lies I should know about? Anyone else want to confess anything before I completely lose my mind?" They all looked at each other, and in that moment I knew. There was more. There was always more. "What?" I demanded. "What else?" David took a step toward me, his hand outstretched. "Amber, please." "Don't touch me," I said, backing away. "Just tell me what else." Lauren spoke, her voice breaking. "It's about Mom, your mother, our grandmother. There's something about her past that she made Rachel promise never to tell you, something that explains why she was so willing to help Rachel hide everything, something that." "That what?" I was screaming now, completely past caring who heard me. "That what, Lauren?" Rachel closed her eyes. "That explains why our whole family is so good at keeping secrets. Because Amber, when Mom had her affair and got pregnant with me, it wasn't her first affair. It wasn't even her second. Your mother, our mother, has been living a double life for 40 years. And the man she's been seeing all this time, the man who's my real father, is someone you know very well." "Who?" The word came out as a sob. Rachel opened her eyes and looked at me with infinite sadness. "It's David's father, your father-in-law, which means David is my half-brother, which means Madison and Jake are both." I don't remember falling. One moment I was standing in that hospital corridor listening to Rachel tell me that David was her half-brother, and the next moment I was on the floor, nurses rushing toward me, voices shouting, everything spinning out of control. David wasn't just my husband who'd slept with my sister. He was my sister's half-brother, which meant Madison and Jake weren't just his children with Rachel. They were the products of incest. No, I heard myself saying over and over, no, 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 no. Someone was holding me, a nurse maybe, or Lauren, I couldn't tell. Everything was fuzzy, distant, like I was watching my life from underwater. Get her some water, someone said. Should we call a doctor? Mom, please breathe. But I couldn't breathe. Because if David was Rachel's half-brother, then everything, our entire marriage, our entire family, our entire existence, was built on something so fundamentally wrong that there was no coming back from it. Amber, David's face swam into view. He was kneeling in front of me, his hands on my shoulders. Amber, look at me. I shoved him away with a strength I didn't know I had. Don't touch me, don't ever touch me again. Please just listen. Listen to what? I was screaming again and I didn't care. Let the whole hospital hear. Let the whole world hear. Listen to how you married your half-sister's sister, how you had children with your own half-sister, how our entire family is some kind of. I couldn't even say the word. Rachel was beside me now, her face streaked with tears. Amber, we didn't know, I swear to God, we didn't know when it happened. How could you not know? I spat at her. How could you possibly not know? Because Mom never told us, Rachel was sobbing now. She never told anyone. I only found out 3 years ago when I did the DNA test, when I saw that David and I shared DNA, when I realized that his father, your father-in-law, was my biological father. I looked at David, at this man I'd spent half my life with. You knew, for 3 years you've known and you didn't tell me. I didn't know what to do, David said desperately. I found out at the same time Rachel did. We were both devastated. We both wanted to tell you, but we didn't know how. And then there were Madison and Jake to think about. Madison and Jake, the no. Me's felt like poison in my mouth. Your children with your half-sister. We didn't know, David shouted, and I'd never heard him sound so broken. When Madison was conceived, when Jake was conceived, we had no idea we were related. Rachel and I thought we were having affairs, making terrible mistakes, but we never thought, we never imagined. Does your father know? I asked. Does he know that he had children with my mother? David shook his head. No, Mom never told him either. According to your mother, it was a brief affair during a rough patch in both their marriages. She got pregnant with Rachel and she never told my father. He has no idea Rachel is his daughter. And my father, I looked at Rachel. The man who raised you, does he know? No, Rachel whispered. He thinks I'm his biological daughter, just like he thinks Jake is his son. Mom has been lying to him for 37 years. I started laughing again, that same broken, hollow sound, because of course she had. Of course my mother had spent 4 decades lying to everyone. It ran in the family, apparently. We were all just one big nest of liars and cheaters and people who destroyed each other's lives. I need to see her, I said suddenly, standing up on shaky legs. I need to see my mother right now. Amber, maybe you should wait, David started, but I cut him off. Wait for what? For another bombshell, for another revelation that destroys everything I thought I knew, I laughed bitterly. No, I'm done waiting. I'm done being the last person to know the truth about my own life. Someone take me to my mother now. Lauren stepped forward. I'll drive you. No, I looked at my daughter, this person I'd raised and loved and trusted, who'd spent 6 months lying to me. I'll drive myself. I need to be alone. Mom. Please, I said, and my voice cracked. Please, Lauren, just give me this. Give me 1 moment to process this by myself before I have to face her. Lauren nodded, tears streaming down her face. Okay, but please be careful. Please don't do anything. I'm not going to hurt myself if that's what you're worried about, I said flatly. I'm not going to hurt anyone, I'm just going to get some answers, finally. I walked past all of them, David, Rachel, Lauren, the nurses who were still hovering nearby, and I left the hospital. The drive to my parents' house took 30 minutes. 30 minutes of silence and numbness and occasional bursts of rage so intense I had to pull over until they passed. My mother, my own mother, had been having an affair with David's father for decades, had gotten pregnant with Rachel, had lied to her husband, to her children, to everyone. And then Rachel had gotten involved with David, her own half-brother, not once but twice, creating 2 children who were. I couldn't finish the thought, it was too horrible. My parents lived in the house I'd grown up in, a nice suburban home with a big yard and a porch swing and flowers my mother planted every spring, the perfect picture of a perfect family. All lies. I sat in my car for a full 5 minutes, staring at the house, trying to find the strength to go inside. Finally, I got out and walked to the front door. I didn't knock, I used my key, the same key I'd had since I was 16 years old, and walked in. "Hello," my mother's voice called from the kitchen. "Is that you, Jake?" Jake, my 15-year-old brother, who was actually David's son, who was actually my nephew, who had no idea his entire life was a lie. "It's me, Mom," I called back, and I heard something in my voice that made my mother immediately appear in the hallway. She was 57 years old, still beautiful, still the woman I'd looked up to my entire life, still the person I'd thought I could trust. "Amber," she said, and her face went pale. "What's wrong? You look—" "I know," I interrupted. "I know everything." My mother froze. "What do you mean?" "Rachel told me about you and David's father, about Rachel being your daughter with him, about David and Rachel being half-siblings, about Madison and Jake, all of it." My mother's face crumpled and she grabbed the wall for support. "Oh God. How could you?" I asked, and my voice was surprisingly calm. "How could you do this to Dad, to our family, to me?" "Amber, please. How could you let Rachel get involved with David?" I continued. "How could you let them have children together when you knew they were related?" "I didn't know," my mother cried. "I didn't know Rachel was seeing David until after Madison was born. By then it was too late, the damage was done." "Then why didn't you tell them?" I was shouting now. "Why didn't you tell them the truth so they wouldn't make the same mistake again? Why did you let Jake happen?" My mother was crying now, great heaving sobs. "Because I was a coward, because I couldn't face what I'd done, because telling them would mean admitting to your father that I'd been lying to him for 20 years, because I convinced myself that if I just kept the secret, if I just helped Rachel hide Jake, if I just pretended everything was fine, maybe it would all go away." "But it didn't go away," I said. "It just got worse, and now we're all living with the consequences of your lies." "I know," my mother sank to the floor, her back against the wall. "I know, and I'm sorry. Amber, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. The affair with Robert, with David's father, it was a mistake. I was lonely, your father was working all the time, Robert was having problems with his wife, and it happened, I got pregnant and I panicked. I convinced your father the baby was his, and I tried to end things with Robert, but he didn't know about Rachel. He still doesn't know. And then Rachel and David got together," I said. "I didn't know," my mother repeated. "I swear to you, Amber, I didn't know Rachel was seeing David until years later. By then, Madison had already been born and adopted out. What could I do? Tell them retroactively that they'd committed incest? Destroy them both? I made a choice to keep silent, to let sleeping dogs lie, to hope that Madison would live her life with her adoptive family and we'd never have to deal with any of this. But then Jake happened." My mother's face twisted with guilt. "Yes, Rachel came to me 15 years ago, pregnant again, terrified. She told me the father was David. I was horrified. I told her she had to tell him the truth, that they were related, that they couldn't keep doing this. But she was so scared, she begged me to help her. And your father and I had always wanted another child, so she trailed off." "So you pretended to be pregnant," I finished. "You faked a pregnancy at 45 years old so you could raise your daughter's incestuous baby as your own son." "Yes," the word was barely a whisper. "And I've regretted it every single day since, but I love Jake. He's my grandson, yes, but he's also my son. I raised him. I've watched him grow into this wonderful young man, and the thought of him finding out the truth, of destroying his world the way I'm destroying yours right now, I couldn't do it." I stared at my mother, this woman who'd given birth to me, raised me, taught me right from wrong. This woman who'd been living a lie for 40 years. "Where is he?" I asked. "Where's Jake?" "At basketball practice," my mother said. "He'll be home in an hour." "And Dad?" "Running errands, he'll be back soon." "Does he know I'm here?" No. I nodded slowly, my mind racing. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell Dad everything tonight before he goes to bed. You're going to sit him down and tell him about the affair, about Rachel, about Jake, all of it. Amber, please. If you don't tell him, I interrupted, I will. He deserves to know the truth. He deserves to decide what to do with his marriage, his life, his relationship with his children. You've taken that choice away from him for 40 years. It ends tonight. My mother was sobbing, but she nodded. Okay, I'll tell him. What about Jake? That's up to you and Dad to decide, I said. He's 15, old enough to handle the truth, but also young enough that it will devastate him. You and Dad need to figure out the right way to tell him. But Mom, he has to know eventually. He has a sister out there, Madison, who's dying and might need his help. He has a right to know his own family. I know, my mother whispered. I know you're right. I turned to leave, then stopped. Mom, one more thing. David's father, Robert, are you still seeing him? My mother's face flushed with shame. No, I ended it years ago. After Jake was born, I realized I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep betraying your father, so I told Robert it was over, and I've been faithful ever since. Does his wife know, David's mother? No, as far as I know, Robert never told her. I nodded. Well, she's about to find out, because I'm going to tell David to tell his father everything. Robert deserves to know he has a daughter and grandchildren. David's mother deserves to know her husband betrayed her. Everyone deserves to know the truth, Mom, even if it destroys us all. Amber. But I was already walking out the door. I sat in my car outside my parents' house and called David. He answered on the first ring. Amber, are you okay? No, I said, I'm not okay. I don't think I'll ever be okay again, but I need you to do something for me. Anything. Go to your father, right now, tell him everything. Tell him about Rachel, about Madison, about Jake. Tell him that he has a daughter and 2 grandchildren he doesn't know about. Tell him that his affair with my mother 40 years ago has consequences that are still destroying lives today. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, Amber, that will kill him. My father is 70 years old, his heart. Should have thought about that before he slept with my mother, I said. See. Oldly, I don't care if it kills him, David. He needs to know, just like my father needs to know, just like Jake needs to know, just like Madison needs to know that she's not just the product of a drunken mistake but the product of incest. Everyone needs to know everything, and then we all need to figure out how to live with it. What about us? David asked quietly. What about our marriage? I closed my eyes. I don't know. I honestly don't know if there's an us anymore. You married me while keeping a secret that destroyed everything. You slept with your half-sister twice and created 2 children who are genetically compromised. You lied to me for 23 years. How do we come back from that? I love you, David said desperately. I know I've said that 1,000 times today, but Amber, I love you. I've always loved you. You're the only woman I've ever truly loved. Everything I did, everything I've done has been because I couldn't imagine my life without you. But you built our life on lies, I said. You built it on secrets and betrayal and things so horrible I can barely process them. How am I supposed to look at you and not see every terrible thing you've done? I don't know, David admitted, but I'm willing to spend the rest of my life trying to make it right if you'll let me. I opened my eyes and looked at the house I'd grown up in, the house where my mother had been living a lie for 4 decades, the house where my 15-year-old brother would soon learn that his entire existence was based on deception. Go talk to your father, I said, and then go home to the guest room and wait for me. I need some time alone. I need to think, and then we'll talk about what happens next. Okay, David said, I love you, Amber. I hung up without responding because I didn't know what to say. Did I still love him? Could I still love him after everything I'd learned? I didn't know. I didn't know anything anymore. I drove aimlessly for hours. Through our neighborhood, past the restaurant where Lauren had yelled at me just this morning. God, was it only this morning? Past the park where David and I used to take Lauren when she was little. Past the church where we'd gotten married 23 years ago. Every memory was tainted now. Every moment of happiness, every celebration, every milestone, all of it built on lies. My phone rang constantly. Lauren, Rachel, my mother, even Madison from the hospital. I ignored them all. Finally, as the sun was setting, I found myself at the cemetery where my grandmother was buried. My father's mother, the only truly honest person in our entire family as far as I knew. I sat by her grave and cried. For the first time all day, I let myself truly cry, great heaving sobs that shook my entire body and left me gasping for air. "What do I do, Grandma?" I whispered to the headstone. "How do I fix this?" A voice behind me said, "You can't fix it." I spun around to find Rachel standing there, looking as broken as I felt. "I followed you," she admitted. "I'm sorry, I know you want to be alone, but I couldn't. I needed to talk to you." "There's nothing left to say," I told her. "Yes, there is." Rachel sat down next to me on the grass. "There's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you 15 years ago." "More secrets," I laughed bitterly. What could possibly be left? Rachel looked at me and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not guilt, not shame, but relief. "When you cut me out of your life 15 years ago," Rachel said slowly, "you told me I was dead to you, you told me you never wanted to see me again, you told me that what I'd done was unforgivable." "Because it was," I said. "You slept with my boyfriend." "Ex-boyfriend," Rachel corrected gently. "You'd broken up with him, you'd told him you needed space, that you weren't sure about the relationship, that you might not come back. That doesn't make what you did okay." "I know," Rachel's voice was soft, "and I've never tried to excuse it, but Amber, there's something you need to understand, something I couldn't tell you back then because you were so angry, so hurt, but I need to tell you now." "What?" Rachel took a deep breath. "I didn't sleep with David because I wanted him, I slept with David because I wanted to understand why you loved him." I stared at her. "What?" "You were my best friend," Rachel said, tears streaming down her face. "My sister, my other half, we'd done everything together our entire lives, and then you fell in love with David and suddenly there was this part of you I couldn't reach, this part of you that belonged to him, and when you left for Boston, when you said you needed space, I was terrified, terrified that you'd realize you didn't need me anymore, that David had replaced me in your heart." "So you slept with him?" I asked incredulously. "I know it sounds insane," Rachel said, "and it was insane, but I was 23 and stupid and desperate. Oh, feel close to you again. I thought if I could understand what you saw in him, if I could experience what you'd experienced, maybe I wouldn't feel so left behind. Maybe I'd understand why you'd changed." I didn't know what to say to that. "And then I got pregnant," Rachel continued. "And I realized what I'd done. I'd betrayed you in the worst possible way, and when I lost the baby, or when I thought I'd lost the baby, I was relieved, because it meant I could bury my mistake and you'd never have to know how badly I'd hurt you." "But you didn't lose the baby," I said. "You gave her up." "I gave her up because I couldn't raise David's child while watching him marry you," Rachel said. "Because every time I looked at her, I would have seen my betrayal. I would have seen what I'd done to you, so I gave her to a family who could love her without all that baggage, and I lied about miscarrying because I thought it was kinder than the truth." "And then you did it again," I said. 15 years later, you slept with David again and created Jake." Rachel's face twisted with pain. That time was different. That time David and I were both so broken. You'd cut me out of your life. David was drowning in guilt over what we'd done. We'd been meeting in secret for months, trying to figure out how to fix things, how to get you to forgive me. And one night we both just broke. We were both so desperate for comfort, for connection, for someone who understood the terrible thing we'd done. And we made another terrible mistake. "Did you love him?" I asked. The same question I'd asked at the hospital, but this time I needed a different answer. "Did you ever love David?" Rachel looked at me, and I saw the truth in her eyes before she even spoke. "Yes," she whispered. "Not the way you did, not romantically, but I loved him because he was part of you, because he made you happy, because loving him meant I could still feel connected to you even after you'd pushed me away, and I've hated myself for that love every single day since." We sat in silence for a long time, two sisters who'd spent 15 years apart, finally being honest with each other. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said finally. "I'm not asking you to," Rachel said. "I'm just asking you to understand, and maybe someday, we can find a way back to each other. Because Amber, you're my sister, you're the most important person in my life, and I know I've destroyed that, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right if you'll let me." I looked at Rachel, really looked at her, and I saw not the sister who'd betrayed me, but the scared 23-year-old who'd made a terrible mistake. The devastated mother who'd given up her daughter, the broken woman who'd been living with guilt and shame for 24 years. And I realized something. I'd been so focused on my own pain, my own betrayal, my own hurt, that I'd never considered what all of this had cost Rachel. She'd lost her daughter. She'd lost her sister. She'd lost her identity as a good person. She'd been forced to hide and lie and pretend for decades, all while raising another secret child and watching the sister she loved build a life with the man she'd betrayed her with. "I'm not ready to forgive you," I said honestly, "but I'm ready to try to understand." Rachel's face broke into a tentative smile. "That's more than I deserve." "Probably," I agreed. "But Rachel, if we're going to move forward, if any of us are going to move forward, no more secrets. No more lies, no matter how painful the truth is, we tell it." Agreed. "Agreed," Rachel said immediately. We sat together by our grandmother's grave as the sun set, two sisters who'd spent 15 years apart, finally starting the long, painful process of healing. I went home that night. David was in the guest room just like I'd told him to be. I knocked softly on the door. "Come in," he called. I opened the door to find him sitting on the bed, his head in his hands. He looked up when he saw me, hope and fear warring on his face. "Did you talk to your father?" I asked. David nodded. "Yes, he didn't take it well. He's at the hospital right now. Minor heart attack. My mother called an ambulance." I felt a pang of guilt, but I pushed it away. "Is he going to be okay?" "The doctors think so, but Amber, my mother knows everything now. She knows about the affair, about Rachel, about the grandchildren. She's devastated. She's talking about divorce." "That's her choice to make," I said, "just like I have a choice to make about our marriage." David stood up. "Have you made that choice?" I took a deep breath. "I'm going to get tested to see if I'm a match for Madison, and while we wait for the results, you and I are going to counseling. We're going to therapy 3 times a week minimum. We're going to talk about everything, every lie, every secret, every moment of our relationship. And we're going to figure out if there's anything in G left worth saving." "And if there is?" David asked hopefully. "Then we'll save it," I said. "But David, I need you to understand something. Our marriage as it was, that's over, dead, gone. If we rebuild, it's going to be something completely different. Something based on truth and honesty and no more secrets. Can you do that?" "Yes," David said immediately. "Anything, I'll do anything." "Then go talk to Lauren," I said. "She's your daughter and she's been caught in the middle of all this. She needs her father right now. And tomorrow we all sit down together, you, me, Lauren, Rachel, Madison, and eventually Jake, and we figure out how to be a family, a real family, not one built on lies." David nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you, Amber. Thank you for giving me another chance." "Don't thank me yet," I said. "This is going to be the hardest thing either of us has ever done, and there's no guarantee it will work, but I'm willing to try for us, for Lauren, for this family that's so broken I'm not even sure it can be fixed." I turned to leave, but David called my name. "Amber." "Yes." "I do love you. I need you to know that. Everything I've done, all the lies, all the secrets, I did because I was terrified of losing you. I know that doesn't make it okay. I know that doesn't excuse anything. But I need you to know that you've been the center of my world for 24 years, and you always will be." I looked at my husband, this man who'd lied to me for our entire relationship, and I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of understanding. "I know," I said softly. "And David, I love you too. I hate you right now. I'm furious with you. I'm not sure I'll ever trust you again, but I still love you, and that's why this hurts so much." I left him there and went to our bedroom, my bedroom now, and I lay down on the bed we'd shared for 23 years. And for the first time all day, I felt something other than pain and rage and betrayal. I felt hope. Tiny, fragile, barely there, but hope nonetheless. 2 weeks later, I got the call from the hospital. I was a match for Madison. Not a perfect match, but close enough that the doctors were optimistic about a transplant succeeding. I sat in the doctor's office, staring at the paperwork, and I thought about everything that had happened. My mother had told my father everything, and he'd moved out. They were separated, possibly heading toward divorce after 40 years of marriage. David's father was recovering from his heart attack, but his marriage was also over. David's mother had filed for divorce and hadn't spoken to her husband since learning the truth. Jake had been told everything. He'd taken it about as badly as expected: rage, tears, confusion, and a refusal to speak to anyone in the family for days. But slowly, with therapy and patience, he was starting to accept his new reality. He'd even met Madison once, a brief, awkward visit that had ended with both of them crying and hugging. Lauren was in therapy too, dealing with her own guilt over keeping secrets. David and I were going to counseling 3 times a week, slowly, painfully rebuilding trust. Rachel and I had coffee once a week. We didn't talk about the past. We talked about the present, about our lives now, about Madison and Jake and the future. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. And now I had a choice to make. Give Madison my kidney and possibly save her life, or refuse and let nature take its course. What do you want to do? The doctor asked gently. I thought about Madison, 23 years old, innocent in all of this, a young woman who just wanted to live, to know her family, to have a chance at a future. I thought about Jake, 15 years old, confused and angry and hurting, who would need his sister someday, even if he didn't know it yet. I thought about Lauren, who would need her half-sister too, eventually. And I thought about myself, about the kind of person I wanted to be, the kind of person who could look past betrayal and pain and see a young woman who needed help. I'll do it, I said. Schedule the surgery. The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks later. The night before, my entire family came to the house, not to celebrate, none of us were ready for that, but to be together, to face this together. David, Lauren, Rachel, Madison, Jake, my mother and father, still separated but both present for this. Even David's mother came, though she couldn't look at my mother without glaring. We sat in the living room, this group of broken people who were somehow supposed to be a family, and Madison spoke. I know I don't deserve this, she said, looking at me. I know I manipulated everyone, I know I lied, I know the circumstances of my birth are complicated, but Amber, thank you for giving me this chance, thank you for being brave enough to look past everything that's happened and just see me. A purse. On Who Wants to Live. You're my niece, I said simply. You're Lauren's sister, you're part of this family whether we planned it that way or not, and I'm not going to let you die because your parents made mistakes. Jake spoke next. I'm still mad at all of you, just so you know. I'm mad at Mom and Dad for lying to me my whole life. He looked at my parents, who both flinched. I'm mad at Rachel and David for what they did. I'm mad at Lauren for keeping secrets. I'm mad at Madison for manipulating everyone. I'm just mad. That's fair, I said. You have every right to be mad. But, Jake continued, his voice cracking, I'm glad I know the truth now. I'm glad I have a sister. Even if everything is weird and complicated and messed up, I'm glad Madison's going to be okay, and I'm glad Aunt Amber, just Amber, is brave enough to help her. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. David stood up. I need to say something to all of you. I've spent 24 years lying and hiding and being a coward. I've hurt every single person in this room. I've destroyed marriages, broken trust, and created a mess that's affected generations. And I'm sorry. I know sorry isn't enough. I know I can never make up for what I've done, but I want you all to know that I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be the man I should have been all along. He looked at me. Amber, I know our marriage might not survive this. I know you might decide that too much has happened, that too many lies have been told. But whether you stay or go, I want you to know that loving you has been the greatest honor of my life, and I will never stop being grateful that you gave me a second chance. I stood up and walked over to him. Everyone watched, holding their breath. I took David's hand. I'm not going anywhere, I said. Not yet anyway. We still have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of healing ahead of us. But David, for better or worse, you're my husband, and I'm going to fight for us. I'm going to fight for this family, because even though we're broken and messy and completely dysfunctional, we're still a family, and that has to mean something. David pulled me into a hug, and I let myself sink into his arms. Behind us, Lauren started crying. Rachel joined in. Even Jake, my angry 15-year-old brother who was actually my nephew, was wiping his eyes. We stood there, all of us in that living room, holding each other and crying and slowly, painfully beginning to heal. The surgery went perfectly. Madison's new kidney started functioning immediately. The doctors were amazed at how well her body accepted it. She'd need medication for the rest of her life, regular checkups, careful monitoring, but she was going to live. I woke up from the anesthesia to find David sitting beside my hospital bed, holding my hand. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Like someone took out one of my organs," I said with a weak smile. "How's Madison?" "She's perfect. The doctors say the kidney is working beautifully. She wants to see you when you're ready." "I'm ready now." David helped me into a wheelchair, and a nurse pushed me to Madison's room. She was sitting up in bed looking stronger than I'd ever seen her, and when she saw me, she burst into tears. "Thank you," she sobbed. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "You're welcome," I said simply. "Now promise me something." "Anything." "Promise me you'll live a good life. Promise me you'll be honest and kind and brave. Promise me you'll break the cycle of lies and secrets that has defined this family for too long." Madison nodded fiercely. "I promise, I swear, Amber, I'm going to make you proud." "You already have," I said. Lauren came in then, and Jake and Rachel. We all crowded into Madison's hospital room, this strange, broken, beautiful family, and we talked and laughed and cried together. And for the first time in weeks, maybe for the first time in years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. 6 months later, David and I renewed our vows. It wasn't the big wedding we'd had 23 years ago. It was small, just our family and a handful of close friends. Lauren was my maid of honor. Madison and Jake stood up with us too, representing the complicated, messy truth of our family. Rachel was there, sitting beside my parents who were slowly working through their own issues. David's parents weren't. They'd both declined to attend, the wounds still too fresh, but David's siblings came, offering their support. The ceremony was simple. No big speeches, no grand declarations, just David and me standing in front of the people we loved, promising to be honest with each other from this day forward. "I know I don't deserve this," David said, his voice shaking. "I know I've broken your trust and hurt you in ways I can never fully repair, but Amber, I promise you from this day forward, but Amber, I promise you. From this day forward, I will live with complete honesty, no secrets, no lies, just us facing everything together." I looked into his eyes, and for the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe him. "Then let's begin," I whispered, "not as the people we were, but as the people we choose to be now." We held hands, and around us our family stood, imperfect, bruised, and human, but present. Lauren squeezed my hand. Rachel offered a tentative smile. Madison and Jake held each other close, their shared understanding forming a bond stronger than anything that had come before. My parents were together but separate, healing in their own way, and even in the middle of this chaos, there was a fragile sense of peace. That night, after everyone had left, David and I sat on the porch of our home, watching the stars. There were still questions, there were still scars, but there was also hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, love could survive even the deepest betrayals. "I don't know what the future holds," I said softly, "but I do know one thing: we survived the worst, and now we have a chance to truly live." David took a deep breath and nodded. "Together," he said. I leaned into him, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the weight of the past start to lift. Our family was broken, messy, and complicated, but it was ours, and we would face it all, one day at a time. The past could not be undone, the mistakes could not be erased, but the future was still ours to shape. And for the first time in decades, I allowed myself to believe that we could be okay, not perfect, not as if nothing had ever happened, but okay.